OnePlus has officially moved into the flagship pricing territory. So how does the OnePlus 8 compare with this year's top competition? Hey s'mores, I'm Shannon Morse. Welcome to Morse Code. I do tech reviews and tutorials, so if you are looking for in-depth tech and gadget content, you have come to the right place. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to become a part of this awesome community that we have, and check out my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links down below to see how you can support this channel. I did want to say a big thanks to my newest s'mores, including on Buy Me a Coffee, Mary Lee, Anonymous, and Tech Sauce, and on Patreon, CLI Guy. So this right here is the OnePlus 8. It costs $700 for 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, and the option for that one is glacial green for the color. This one that I have in my hand is the $799 option. This one comes with 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, and the color is called Interstellar Glow, and I truly think it looks like a unicorn. Now you can get Onyx Black or Polar Silver options as well via T-Mobile or Verizon if you choose to go with those carriers. This is available now and you can get it as long as it is in stock. This weighs 6.3 ounces and the dimensions are 160.2 millimeters by 72.9 millimeters by 8 millimeters. And in the box you get the phone, the power adapter and cable, a SIM ejector tool, logo stickers, I love the stickers, and a screen protector which is already pre-installed. Now this does have Gorilla Glass, it is very pretty, and it has 3D Corning Gorilla Glass on the back, which makes it very shiny, but that also means that it's a fingerprint magnet. I do love the colors, I like that it changes depending on what angle you choose to turn this, but it is still a fingerprint magnet. On the bottom you get USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-C, a dual nano SIM slot, and you also have the alert slider, the volume, and the power buttons on the two sides. Now there are dual speakers on this phone as well, but there is no official waterproofing certification. Now you will probably be fine for a bit in the rain or if you drop this in water, but just do not leave it underwater or you will be very sad. Now on the front, it is a 6.55-inch fluid AMOLED display with HDR10 Plus support and a 90 Hz refresh rate. Now that can be dropped down to 60 Hz to improve the battery life if you see fit. The resolution on this is 1080 by 2400 and you get 402 pixels per inch, and the aspect ratio of this is 20:9. It is very comfortable to hold. It's a little bit big, but not to a crazy amount, and it does have very accurate colors on the display, but you can turn up the pop in the settings. It's called Vivid, as well as Vibrant Colors Effect, which gives you more of a saturated feel on the display, kind of like what you see on Samsung phones. This phone also is certified with TUV eye comfort certifications for reducing harmful blue light, which is extremely useful. Now just like previous OnePlus devices, you also get a reading mode and night mode, there's vibrant color modes, and this one actually maxes out at 1100 nits of brightness, which is incredibly bright, so if you take this outside with you, you will notice that there's a bit of a rainbow effect if you are wearing polarized sunglasses, but you can see it quite well in the sun. So I had no issues when I was playing with this in the bright Colorado sunlight. You will likely want to keep auto brightness enabled though, because if you're playing with this thing inside and you turn up the brightness to max, it is very bright. It's almost too bright in my opinion. The screen to body size is 88.65%, so it does have some bezels along the edges in black, but I don't really mind since that does help with the edge touch sensitivity. There is a bit of palm rejection in this phone, so you will notice if you're holding this with one hand, you won't accidentally hit the edges very often, which I really liked. There's also an ambient display that is highly customizable down to the edge lighting, which is called Horizon Light, that glows along with notifications. I made mine purple, obviously, because that's my favorite color. On the back, you get several different cameras. There's a dual LED flash. There is no telephoto, so keep that in mind. They swapped from past gen for a macro camera instead. There's a 16 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, which is at 116 degrees field of view with an f2.2 aperture. There's also a 48 megapixel main camera with an f1.75 aperture and 0.8 micrometer pixel size. The last one is a 2 megapixel macro camera, f2.4 aperture, and that one's at 1.75 micrometer pixel size. When you open the camera application, you do get 2 times digital zoom. There's no optical zoom. It's a hybrid technology which crops from the main 48 megapixel sensor. You also have ultra shot HDR, nightscape, super macro, portraits with the 16 megapixel camera. There's also pro mode, panorama, AI scene detection, raw image support, which is great, and then smart pet capture, which is also just automatically included. Now in my testing, I found the main camera is quite good with daylight. White balance was not overblown very often, and the colors are very, very vibrant and pretty. Auto HDR does a really good job of bringing out the colors out from the shadows, and photos are generally sharp. There was some noise and blurriness around the edges though, like check out the trees in the lens distortion whenever I tested an ultra wide shot, and that is with the lens correction enabled in the settings for the camera. Now the digital zoom does create some fuzziness and some noise in the photos even with full daylight, though it's acceptable enough for social sharing. As far as portraits go, I'm very pleased with the portrait mode on this phone. The subjects were clearly defined from the background bokeh, and the images are very sharp as far as the subjects go. Portraits really shine in daylight, but at night they don't do as well, which I was kind of expecting. Now they do have a low light night mode as well. This does a very fine job of sharpening the focus of a photo, but the edges are kind of grainy and the details are a little bit more soft. Macro mode was really fun to play with. I thoroughly enjoyed using macro mode. It actually let me get up really, really close and personal. However, sometimes I thought that it was over sharpening the pictures, so I felt like it was over processing them at some points. Smart pet capture really helps with Starbucks fur, even in low light, even when the only illumination are some lights in a separate room and a candle, so I was pretty happy with that as well. Now 4K video can be recorded at 30 or 60 FPS, 1080p as well, and there's also a slow-mo at 720p, 480 FPS, or 1080p 240 FPS. You can also do time lapses in this phone at 1080p 30 FPS or 40K at 30 FPS as well, and all of that includes EIS and OIS for stabilization. They also included cinematic mode for aspect ratio recording, which means you get a more movie-like experience. Now OIS and EIS made the videos very, very stable, and the autofocus does a great job whenever I was moving from subject to subject. The dynamic range looks good, white balance was great, and the videos had very accurate contrast and color. And I also wanted to throw in this video of an audio test. This is a recording on the OnePlus 8 rear-facing camera to see how the OIS and EIS works out. Let's see what it looks like. How's that audio sound? Now the front camera is a 16 megapixel 1.0 micron pixel size with f2.0 aperture, and that one also has EIS built in. You can also do 1080p at 30 FPS and time lapse on that front camera too. Now this includes face unlock, HDR, screen flash, and face retouching as well. Now the selfie camera was pleasing as well for the most part. Photos were very clear and the colors were accurate with some increase in contrast and saturation. I noticed that sometimes the whites got blown out, like in my mask that I was wearing when I went out one day, but this only happened occasionally. The beauty mode was not overly uncanny valley, like it didn't soften my face to the point where I felt like it was airbrushed. It was just enough to make me feel like I was kind of blemish free. It looked good, so I was pretty happy with it. I also wanted to throw in this video example as well so you can see what the audio and the EIS looks like. All right, and this is a stabilization test and audio test for the OnePlus front-facing camera on the OnePlus 8.
All right, let's see how this sounds. Yeah.
Now let's move on to performance. We have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865, which is pretty standard for 2020 phones. Again, you have that 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of ROM. There is no SD card support, so consider that if you are purchasing one of these. It also has a Cryo 585 CPU and Adreno 650 GPU. And when I was testing this with 3D Mark, I love the 3D Mark app, it's great. I was able to get a test score averaging around 7232, which totally blows away the TCL phones, but again, those are half the price. My gaming experience on here was everything played with no hiccups. I had no issues, I had no lag, Pokemon Go was great, Mario Kart was great, everything was great, so I was very happy with playing video games on this. However, since one of those speakers faces downwards, it was really easy for me to cover it up with my hand, so keep that in mind. Oxygen OS is built atop Android 10, so that means you get everything that you would get in Android 10, like Dark Theme 2.0 and dynamic wallpapers, which is something that OnePlus includes. Zen mode is also included in here, as well as customizations and gestures. The ability to customize your setup and fine-tune it all the way down to like what icons you can see on the header is something that I wish vanilla Android would allow you to do. I feel like they should. This phone will get 2 years of major software upgrades and 3 years of security patches, but those security patches will only come every 2 months instead of every month. Bloatware is very minor. OnePlus has a community app on here, there's game space, there's a few other things, but it's generally clean. The only major issue I had is whenever I was browsing on Chrome. Sometimes the page freezes up for a few seconds before it allows me to interact with the page again. It doesn't crash, it just freezes up and then it resumes. Now, it seems like I'm not the only one experiencing this issue. There seems to be several other people messaging and talking about it. The alternative is just to use a third-party browser. Now, this was also an issue with the updated Chrome app on the S20 Plus that I own, which leads me to believe that it's an issue with the browser, maybe a recent update, not necessarily the hardware. So I'm not sure if that's a OnePlus issue or maybe just an issue with all Androids. Now, Face Unlock is included on here, and I'll give you an example of that. Locked, unlocked. There you go. So Face Unlock is fast and fluid. You do have to turn on the screen for it to actually face unlock with either a double tap or by clicking the power button. I usually just click the power button because that's easy for me. It only works with your eyes open as well, and this option is not as secure as Face ID on Apple though, or the Pixel 4, since it uses a less sophisticated technology. The OnePlus uses 2D Face Unlock as opposed to something that's a little bit more secure. The in-display fingerprint sensor is very similar to previous generations of the OnePlus devices. It's very fast. I like that you can customize the animation effect as well, and it has this nice big green icon on the front, so it's really easy to find the fingerprint sensor whenever you're first getting started with the phone, so I appreciated that. As far as connectivity goes, you get 4G, there's 5G, there's Wi-Fi 6, NFC, dual SIM. However, there's only single 5G SIM support right now. They do say that it will upgrade for 5G or 4G dual SIM support, but that will be implemented via an over-the-air update. I did get to experience 5G speeds in parts of Denver here, and it is notably faster whenever I'm out and about in those areas, so that was a plus too. Now, I did mention it, but there are dual speakers in here with Dolby Atmos. They are surprisingly clear with no distortion at highest volume. They do lack bass though, but most smartphones do. Bluetooth is also included if you don't want to listen to music on the speakers. You can do Bluetooth 5.1 with aptX, aptX HD, LDAC, and AAC support. My connections did not falter as I moved around the household and I had my little Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus in my ears away from my phone, so it worked really well. The connection was great. There is no headphone jack on the top of these or the bottom, so that's kind of unfortunate, but if you do want to listen to Bluetooth or use the speakers or just use this for calling, call quality on Google Fi here in Denver was really excellent. I also had no drops there as well. Previous OnePlus phones introduced us to Warp Charge, and this one is no different. You get Warp Charge 30T in this phone. That means that you get 5 volts, 6 amps of power, which means you can get about 50% in 22 minutes on a 4,300 milliampere hour battery. Now that is 13% more battery capacity than the 7T, and it's quite useful. There is no wireless charging. You do need the 8 Pro for that, but the battery life with this one, with 90 hertz enabled, I'm able to get about 10 or 11 hours of screen time on an average day. By 10 p.m., I usually have some power left after a full work day, and I'm averaging between 35% down to 15% left, and that's really awesome. Now, in my testing over the previous month, I did get it to die a couple of times, just twice, by 10 p.m. on super heavy usage days. And I say 10 p.m. because that's usually when I choose to go to sleep. Now, the OnePlus 8 is a solid premium feeling phone with only a few drawbacks. It would have been great if wireless charging and waterproofing were in this phone as well, and if this interstellar glow option was available at that cheaper price point too. The battery life, the beautiful screen, the excellent camera make this a surefire contender, and I think it's quite fair for that price point. If you don't want or need wireless charging or water resistance, then this is a great option. It's $700 to $800, especially if you are already familiar with the OnePlus ecosystem. I would love to know what you think as well. If you think that price is fair, comment below. Let me know if you already have a OnePlus 8 or if you are thinking about buying one. Thanks again so much to my s'mores as well for subscribing and for watching. I'm Shannon Morse, and I will see you soon. Bye, y'all.